My name is Marina Rodriguez. I'm 47 years old, and on the night of my 47th birthday, my own daughter called me a nobody. Not in private, not in anger behind a closed door, but in front of her friends, while my husband stood there and smiled. I wasn't expecting a big celebration. I've never cared about balloons or cake. After 20 years of crawling under sinks and repairing burst pipes across Riverside, California, I'd learned not to expect much in the way of grand gestures. But I also wasn't expecting humiliation. Daniel had insisted we keep it casual at home. He ordered takeout from a trendy Mediterranean restaurant downtown, the kind of place where the hummus costs more than an hour of labor. He poured himself a glass of red wine from a bottle he didn't offer to share. Around him sat a group of people I barely recognized. New friends, business types, polished and loud. And then there was her. Vanessa Phillips, Daniel's ex-girlfriend. The one he once told me was ancient history. She stood near the window in a silk blouse, laughing like she already owned the house. I stood near the kitchen island holding a lukewarm soda, wondering when exactly I had become invisible in my own home. Then Brianna's voice cut through the room. "Wait," one of her friends giggled, glancing toward me. "That's your mom?" Brianna looked up from her phone, her expression shifting into something I'd never seen before. Not embarrassment, not even teenage irritation. It was contempt. "Yeah," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "That's her." She tilted her head toward me. "You know she fixes toilets for a living? Thinks that makes her some kind of strong, independent woman." Laughter exploded across the dining room. I felt my fingers tighten around the soda can. 16 years ago, I held that girl in my arms for the first time. I worked double shifts when Daniel was unemployed. I missed sleep, missed holidays, missed myself. And now, I was a punchline. "You're a nobody," Brianna announced. The words echoed, heavy, permanent. I stared at her. This was the same girl who once cried when I left for overnight emergency calls. The same girl who used to draw me pictures labeled my hero. But it didn't stop there. Daniel raised his wine glass. "Well," he said casually, as if announcing a toast at a wedding, "it's time you knew the truth." My stomach dropped. Vanessa stepped closer to him, not shy, not hesitant, comfortable. "This," Daniel continued, placing a hand on Vanessa's waist, "is Vanessa. She owns Phillips Construction, 3 locations across Orange County." He glanced at me like he was assessing used furniture. "She's more established." Vanessa's lips curved. Daniel's voice dropped. "You were always just temporary, Marina. Temporary. 22 years of marriage reduced to a placeholder. No one stopped him. No one defended me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood up quietly, walked upstairs, pulled my old duffel bag from the closet, the one I used during certification classes at Riverside Community College, when Daniel used to promise, "Just give me 10 years and we'll be untouchable." Untouchable. I zipped the bag closed. Downstairs, laughter continued. My heartbeat was louder. As I walked past them toward the front door, Daniel didn't try to stop me. Vanessa didn't move. Brianna didn't look up from her phone. The door closed behind me, and something inside me went silent. 30 minutes later, I was sitting in my Ford F-150 at the edge of Fairmount Park. My phone buzzed. 31 missed calls. 3 from Daniel, 2 from Brianna, 25 unknown numbers. 1 from Vanessa. I stared at the screen. Then I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I powered the phone off. Not because I couldn't handle their panic, but because I didn't want to hear it yet. That night, I slept in my truck outside a 24-hour laundromat on Magnolia Avenue. It wasn't comfortable, but for the first time in years, I could breathe. At sunrise, I drove to Mel's Diner, near my old apartment from before Daniel and I married. I ordered black coffee, and I opened my laptop. It wasn't about revenge at first. It was about clarity. Daniel thought I was temporary, but the mortgage, the vehicles, the primary bank accounts, they were all under my name. He'd never paid attention to paperwork. He never thought he needed to. I began researching. Divorce attorneys, Forensic accountants, private investigators, reputation management firms. If there's one thing plumbing teaches you, it's this. Every structure looks solid until you understand what's running beneath it. And I knew exactly how to shut off the water. 3 weeks would pass in silence, but by then, they wouldn't be laughing anymore. Silence is a powerful thing. For 3 weeks, I gave them nothing. No calls returned, no angry messages, no dramatic confrontations. Just absence. Daniel didn't file for divorce. That told me everything. He thought I'd cool off. Thought I'd come crawling back once pride gave way to loneliness. He'd always believed I was emotional first, practical second. He'd forgotten who handled the contracts, who filed the taxes, who signed the loans. On the 4th morning after I left, I met with a private investigator named Rafael Torres, former LAPD. Calm eyes, efficient voice. He specialized in what he called strategic leverage. I don't do revenge, he told me across the diner table. I gather facts. Facts are all I need, I replied. Torres started with Vanessa. Within 4 days, he had photographs. Dozens. Vanessa wasn't just rekindling something with Daniel. She was juggling multiple business dinners. Project managers, suppliers, even a junior site engineer she'd flown to San Diego under the guise of a property inspection. Time-stamped photos, hotel receipts, parking validations. But that wasn't the real fracture. The financial report was. Phillips Construction looked polished on the outside. Glossy website, curated Instagram, press mentions. But beneath it, unpaid contractor liens, OSHA violations, credit extensions stacked on top of other credit extensions. One major project built without proper wetland permits. Borrowed success. And Daniel had tied himself to it like it was a life raft. I paid Torres extra for a deeper dive. Within a week, I had documentation thick enough to fill a binder. I didn't send it to Daniel. I sent it anonymously to a tax attorney and to a local business journalist who loved investigative pieces. I made sure Vanessa's name was front and center, and Daniel's appeared beside hers as domestic partner. Collateral damage isn't emotional, it's structural. Meanwhile, Brianna kept posting. Shopping trips with Vanessa. Caption, new energy greater than old energy. A video of Daniel laughing in the passenger seat of Vanessa's Mercedes. Caption, upgrade. What Brianna didn't realize was that every purchase she filmed, every luxury dinner, every sneaker haul, was charged to a credit card still legally under my name. I hadn't frozen them yet. I let them feel comfortable. Comfort breeds exposure. On a Friday night, 3 weeks after I left, they were at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Vanessa tagged the location publicly. I logged into the banking app and pressed freeze. I waited exactly 8 minutes. Then my phone buzzed with transaction alerts. Declined. 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 I imagined the confusion first, then the embarrassment. Torres later confirmed it. Daniel arguing with the waiter, Vanessa insisting it was a banking error, Brianna whispering, "Dad, people are staring." The bill was $843. No one paid it. Photos of the argument hit Yelp within hours. Couple throws tantrum after cards declined. Vanessa screaming, "My boyfriend will cover it." He didn't. That was the first crack. The second came at Chase Bank. Daniel and Vanessa stood at the counter, demanding access to the joint account. "It's been dissolved," the banker said calmly. "What do you mean dissolved?" Daniel snapped. "It was solely under Mrs. Marina Rodriguez's name. She removed all secondary access 3 weeks ago." Vanessa's face changed first. Daniel's changed slower, like someone watching the tide go out and realizing they were standing too far from shore. By the time they got home, a county notice was stapled to the front door. Pending seizure. Unpaid business property taxes tied to Phillips Construction. Vanessa ripped it down. Daniel stared at it like it was written in another language. Across the street, inside a rented Toyota Camry Torres had arranged, I watched them, not with anger, with observation. Brianna stormed onto the lawn minutes later. "Why isn't the Wi-Fi working?" Because I'd shut that off too. Silence in a house feels different when it's not chosen. Later that afternoon, I received confirmation via email. The IRS had acknowledged the anonymous tip. An audit investigation was officially underway. Vanessa's accounts flagged, Daniel's name included. 2 days later, the story broke in the local press enterprise. Orange County construction executive under tax fraud investigation. Vanessa's photo sat beside the headline. Daniel's appeared in paragraph 3. Brianna's Instagram went private within an hour. Vanessa's investors began pulling out. Daniel called me 32 times that afternoon. Then came the text. "Marina, I don't know what you've done, but this is out of control. You're destroying our family. We need to talk." Destroying our family. I looked around my motel room. The single lamp. The quiet hum of the air conditioner. The peace. Family had been destroyed 3 weeks ago. I didn't respond with words. I sent him a photo instead, our anniversary dinner from last year. In the picture, I was smiling softly while he raised his wine glass. That night, I remembered it clearly. He'd made a joke about how lucky I was that he'd stuck around. I typed, "You toasted to your upgrade. Now drink it." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. The third crack came 2 days later, when Vanessa's primary business account was frozen pending audit. Torres called me. "She's distancing herself from Daniel," he said, blaming him, saying he brought bad luck. Of course she was. Borrowed power evaporates quickly under heat. By the end of the week, Daniel wasn't posting anymore. Brianna wasn't laughing anymore. And Vanessa? She was hiring her own attorney. I hadn't raised my voice once, hadn't stepped inside the house, hadn't confronted anyone. But the foundation was shifting, and I knew exactly how much pressure it would take before everything collapsed. The collapse didn't begin with a scream. It began with a thumbnail. 3 weeks after the audit notice, Brianna's friend, the same one who had filmed my birthday dinner, uploaded a video. The title was simple: "Wife Humiliated at Her Own Birthday." Then everything changed. By noon, it had 300,000 views. By nightfall, over 1 million. The footage was edited with ruthless precision. Brianna's voice, crystal clear. "You're a nobody." Daniel raising his wine glass. "You were always just temporary." Vanessa's smirk. Then the edit cut sharply. Screenshots of financial filings, audit confirmations, frozen accounts, the Ruth's Chris incident, the county seizure notice. A timeline stitched together like a courtroom exhibit. The comments were merciless. She handled it like a queen. The husband thought he upgraded? Looks like he downgraded into prison. The daughter is just as cruel as the father. I didn't watch it twice. Once was enough. Torres called me that evening. Vanessa's investors officially pulled out, he said. Her primary lender is freezing the construction line of credit. And Daniel? I asked. Spending a lot of time alone. I imagined him pacing the living room. The same room where he had once told me I was temporary. Temporary women don't control permanent assets. 2 days later, Vanessa publicly announced she was stepping back from Phillips Construction due to unforeseen personal complications. Translation? Survival. She didn't visit the house anymore. Daniel's calls became desperate, then pleading, then panicked. One voicemail stood out. "Marina, please. This has gone too far. Brianna's getting harassed at school. People are saying things. We can fix this." Fix this. I thought about the night I left, about the silence when I walked past them. No one had tried to fix anything then. The next development came faster than I expected. Vanessa cut ties completely. She issued a statement through her lawyer claiming Daniel had misrepresented financial details to her. Torres sent me a photo that night. Daniel standing outside the house alone. No Mercedes in the driveway. No silk blouses near the window. Just him, small. For the first time since that birthday dinner, I decided to step inside, not to reconcile. To conclude, the movers had already removed most of the shared property under court authorization, assets legally registered under my business. When I opened the front door, the house echoed. The leather sectional was gone. The 65-inch television missing. Even the dining table, The one where Daniel had toasted to my expiration date had been removed. Daniel stood in the center of the empty living room. He looked older. "You've made your point," he said quietly. "No," I replied calmly. "You made it for me." Brianna appeared at the top of the stairs. Her eyes were red. "I didn't think it would go like this," she whispered. That sentence hit somewhere deeper than I expected, but I kept my voice steady. "I didn't either." Daniel stepped forward. "You're destroying us." I reached into my bag and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was my wedding ring, the one he'd mockingly tossed into the kitchen sink after telling me I was temporary. I placed it gently on the empty mantle. Then I handed him a folded envelope. He opened it slowly. Inside was a check. $1. "What is this?" he asked, confusion mixing with anger. "Your share," I said, "after debts, audits, penalties, and legal fees." His jaw tightened. "You think this is justice?" "No," I said softly. "This is consequence." Silence filled the room. Not victorious, not triumphant, just finished. Before leaving, I turned once more. "You told me I was temporary," I said. "Turns out I was foundational." I walked out without waiting for a response. Behind me, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like evidence. 6 months later, Torres sent the final update. Phillips Construction had declared bankruptcy. Vanessa was facing federal charges for tax evasion and environmental violations tied to that unpermitted wetlands build. Daniel had taken a part-time job at a hardware supply store. The house was officially foreclosed. Brianna had moved to Phoenix to live with Daniel's mother. "They barely speak," Torres added. I stared at the message on my phone, waiting for satisfaction, waiting for anger, waiting for something. But all I felt was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm has passed and taken everything unnecessary with it. I wasn't interested in watching them drown anymore. I had already stepped onto different ground. And for the first time in a long time, it felt solid. 6 months after that birthday dinner, I was living in a modest cabin near Lake Arrowhead, 2 hours from Riverside, 2 hours from the version of myself who stood in her own dining room and absorbed humiliation like it was oxygen. Up here, the air was thinner, cleaner. The mornings were quiet except for wind brushing through pine trees and the soft rhythm of water against the dock below my deck. I had taken a county contract upgrading water systems in rural mountain communities. Work that mattered. Work that didn't require applause. Most days, my hands were dirty again. I liked it that way. There's something honest about fixing what's broken without announcing it to the world. Torres had sent one final update before closing my file. Vanessa Phillips was facing formal federal charges. Her company seized. Assets liquidated. Daniel had tried to contest the divorce settlement, but withdrew when confronted with documented financial negligence and public evidence. He'd moved into a small rental unit near Moreno Valley. Brianna was still in Phoenix with her grandmother. No car, no private school, no curated Instagram aesthetic, just normal life. I expected to feel something when I read that report. Triumph, bitterness, vindication. Instead, I felt finished. The opposite of chaos isn't celebration, it's stillness. One afternoon, 3 months into my new life, a letter arrived, handwritten. The return address was Phoenix. My hands paused for just a moment before opening it. "Mom, I'm sorry." The words were shaky. I was stupid. I thought being cool mattered more than being kind. I didn't understand what you carried for us. I miss you. I know I don't deserve it, but could we maybe talk someday? It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't eloquent, but it was real. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a process, and I had earned the right to move slowly. Not long after that letter arrived, I met Ethan Cole, civil engineer, 49, divorced, no children. We met on a job site. I was reviewing pipe schematics when he walked over, grease on his own hands, holding rolled blueprints. "You're Marina Rodriguez?" he asked. "That depends," I replied lightly. "Who's asking?" He smiled, not impressed, not intimidated. "Someone who's been told you're the only contractor up here who doesn't cut corners." It wasn't flirtation. It was respect. That mattered more. We started with coffee after inspections, then dinner in town. He never asked what happened in Riverside until I chose to tell him. He didn't laugh when I mentioned plumbing. Didn't look embarrassed when my boots were muddy. One night, as we stood on the deck watching the sun drop behind the San Bernardino Mountains, he said quietly, "You don't talk like someone who lost everything." I considered that. "I didn't," I answered. "I lost what wasn't real." He nodded. No further questions. That was new for me. No interrogation, no performance, just presence. A year after that birthday dinner, I stood on the same deck at sunrise, coffee in hand, the lake below reflecting gold light, no raised wine glasses, no smirks, no voices telling me I wasn't enough. My phone buzzed softly. A text from Ethan. "Dinner tonight? I'm making that lasagna you love." I smiled before replying. Wouldn't miss it. Inside my cabin, on the wall near the entryway, were new photos. A handshake with the county supervisor after we completed the largest infrastructure upgrade in the district. A fishing trip with Torres, who'd become something like a quiet friend. And one simple photo of me and Ethan standing in front of a half-finished water facility. Both of us exhausted and laughing. Not posed, not curated. Just honest. I sometimes thought back to that night in Riverside, the laughter, the word temporary. If Daniel had never said it, I might still be there, still trying to prove myself in a room that had already decided I didn't belong. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't trend. It doesn't go viral. It's subtle. It's waking up without dread in your chest. It's knowing your value isn't negotiable. I never responded to Brianna's letter immediately, but one quiet afternoon, as wind moved through the pines, I picked up my phone and typed 3 words: "We can talk." That was enough for now. My name is Marina Rodriguez, contractor, problem solver, mother, and finally, for the first time in years, free. Some stories end in explosions. Mine ended in silence. And that silence was the greatest victory of all.